My name is Justin Duncan, and I'm here today with Grace Brown, and she's going to talk to us about Uncle Paul's. What's the rest of it?
Agritourism and educational farm.
Right. And where is that located?
The location is in Tyler, Texas, which is in East Texas in Zone AB.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Grace, why don't you tell us about yourself and some of your history and all that, how you became who you are and all that.
So I'm Grace Brown. I grew up with a farm in West Africa. My father owned a farm, and he never allowed me to do any farm work or learn about the vegetables. In high school, I became the pay manager for the farm, but little did he know I was watching my aunts when they did growing. And where I went to boarding school, we also had a little garden club, so I got to grow strawberries and turnips and whatever. I didn't know it was my passion, but the older I got, I thought about farming because it's kind of relaxing when you do it. Growing vegetables is relaxing. Put a seed in the ground and then you end up with a fruit or a vegetable, something. So that is why I started thinking about it. I was thinking what I would do when I do retire. So I'm getting closer to retirement, and I figure I started research here in the U.S. So I did little growing in my backyard for 3 years, and it was real good. I sold a lot. So then I acquired some land in Tyler, the 5 acres I have in Tyler. I'm only growing on 1 acre. I have 3 hoop houses, and I do plant in the hoop houses and the field currently.
Okay. So you said your dad was a farmer back in West Africa. What kind of vegetables did he grow?
He had diversity. So he had like sugarcane that he basically produced rum or gin for a distillery. So he had that business. He just basically wholesale to the distillery. But he also had other farmers that would grow the sugarcane, but they did not have the mill. So he would teach them, for quality reasons and risk reasons, he would go and teach them to grow the cane, and he will buy it wholesale to supply his vendor. He also grew vegetables such as the sweet potatoes, the sweet potato greens. Sweet potato greens is you sell more of that than you will sell the potatoes. The market was more for the sweet potato greens than the potatoes, the collards, the hot peppers, the kitterly, the bitter balls, which is the garden eggs. Yeah, so he had all of that. The what you call Egyptian spinach, we call it plateau when it's growing, and then after you cook it, it's called palau sauce.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now you mentioned something very important. You said the word risk. So, like, what kind of risks did your father see, and are those the same type of risks that you see here growing in Texas?
Yes. So based on the weather condition and based on where the person's farm is located, I learned that if you're kind of like on a hill and you're growing sugarcane, the soil, we were not fortunate to have someone to test the soil. So I know I've seen him pick up soil and taste it. So I'm not sure what he could taste, but based on that, he could tell them how they had to grow, because he had to have a certain type of cane to provide the 60 proof, the 75, and the 90 proof gin, because those were the 3 different proofs he had to give to his vendor. So all of the cane that these people were growing for him, they had to meet that criteria, because that means his outcome won't be the same. Yeah.
So over there was a question more of soil quality.
Yeah, the soil quality, and then they also look at the drought. But I don't know how they did it, but from what I heard them say, they would look at the snail, because there's a season for snails. They would look at the snail, and there's a little film or a little slime that's on the snail.
Mm-hmm.
They will look at that snail and they could tell whether they would have drought that year or not.
And that is amazing.
And, yeah. So if you're having drought that year, then they knew they had to do more irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, meaning people having to go to the creek or the river and bring some water to make sure the plants get ample water.
Now, I've used snails as an indicator of drought before, but it was on the opposite side of it. It was like when I was farming in Prairie View during the drought years back in 2010, 2011. It was on the after side. It's like if you had a drought, there's no snails. All the snails would disappear if there was a drought. So it's not a forecasting method. It was like, oh yeah, we're definitely in a drought because all the snails are gone.
Yeah.
That was my indicator.
Okay.
But
so for my farm, what I use is, fortunately, I'm here, so you get the weather, and they tell you, what's going to happen.
mm-hmm.
And I know, example of last year, it was just extremely hot, so the water bill was higher because I was watering more. I had depleted all of my water that I have in my tanks from the rain.
Mm-hmm. So you're catching rainwater.
Yes, I do catch rainwater.
Tell us about that.
So I have gutters on the side of my hoop houses,
Mm-hmm.
and I get the rainwater. So that's what I use first for to water. But I have 8 tanks, 330 gallon tanks, and I used all last year.
Wow.
And then I had to use the city water.
Mm-hmm.
However, the plants just barely survive, especially like my hot peppers.
Yeah.
I decided to put the hot peppers and the okras out in the field.
Yeah.
Instead of in a hoop house like I did years before.
Mm-hmm.
And they struggled. So then I went and purchased some, how do you call it?
Shade cloth?
Shade cloth.
Mm-hmm.
So I purchased shade cloth because at home I noticed the people in the farm, when it got too hot, they would take off their second wrap, their lavas, and they would put sticks in the ground and they would tie it from here to here. And all the women in the farm, you'll see them pulling out their second, and they would make this shade. But I know it was cotton, so they kept the shade, and then they would leave the farm and they would come back about maybe 6 in the evening, and they would remove that shade because at night, if there was any dew, they need that dew to get on the. Yes. So I thought about that, and I'm like, okay, let me get the shade cloth, and that's what I did. And actually, in September, my peppers started budding. I had little, because everyone was saying, no, you're not getting peppers this year. Well, I literally did. I did get some peppers because in September, when I removed the shade cloth, and still watering, I had all these flowers, and I did get a good crop of hot peppers and okras between September through, I forgot when we got the first frost, but I did get a good crop of okras. And
now that's interesting. So you were putting the shade over the okra as well?
Yes, I had to. The okras were not producing. They weren't flowering. In fact, you could barely see any bees or anything out there. It was just so hot.
When it's too hot for okra, you know it's hot.
Yes. Yes. So I had to shade the okra and the hot peppers.
So
and the potato greens.
Was there anything in the hoop houses at that time that was performing, or everything moved out to the field?
I had moved all of that out to the field. I had moved the Egyptian spinach out to the field because these things are supposed to thrive in heat.
Right.
But not that type of heat.
Yeah, and so that's a problem that I've seen in hoop houses in Texas, is that it's really too hot during the summers.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people, they just stop producing altogether if they're just, primarily hoop house growers.
Yes.
In the field, usually I have good luck with sweet potatoes. That's my specialty. Like when, I would grow okra, but I usually did that in raised beds because it did not like the soil where I was at to grow in the open field. They would get like maybe 18 inches tall and wouldn't do anything. And I'm not a person who does a lot of amending to the soil. You know, I want to grow what specifically grows in that right soil type. And for me at Prairie View, that was sweet potatoes and strawberries. So during the summertime, I'd put those sweet potatoes in and they would fill up the field. They would just be beautiful out there. But I wasn't harvesting the leaves, and I should have been harvesting the leaves, listening to what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got different risks, you know, that than what your father was dealing with in West Africa. And you're growing out there in Tyler. You know, what made you choose those crops?
I chose those crops basically because of the market that I have currently. So I have, like during the winter, the fall, and the spring, I have the collards, you know, the kale, the cabbage, you know, those things. They sell very well. People that I know, they eat a lot of greens, so those things sell very well. And I know I have the market for it and for the volume because I work a full-time job. I'm limited. I'm working solo. So I know how much I can produce and, you know, and manage.
Right.
Because you can grow it, but if you can't get to it on time, you know, like the collards, when they first start growing, my vegetables, when they first start growing, when you're thinning them out, so those leaves don't hit the ground, I pull those, I wash them, and I chop them up. And there's two different chops. There's a chop to boil the greens, the way most Americans like it. But for the Africans that I sell it to, I have to actually cut it real fine. The African and the Asians, because they're stir frying it. So I have two different cuts when I'm doing those greens. But I do wash them and I cut them and I bag them, vacuum pack them.
Okay.
And I can sell them for more money. It's more convenient for my customers. They would like to just get it and start cooking.
That's pretty cool.
So, but it's the risk of, you know, waiting until the leaves grow and, you know, all of that. It touches the ground, pick up insects or bacteria, you know.
No, that's an important. That's also an important issue. So, like, what pest problems do you have, or have you seen, or do you seasonally deal with?
The pest problems, I have a lot of aphids, and I had someone, an old farmer, to come out there to visit, and he said, you have more pests out here because of where you're located. You're into complete virgin land. That place had not been farmed in over 50 years. So I had to clear everything and start. So those are insects and everything that just thrive in the forest. And I do have a forest right in the back of me. I have not cut down many of my trees. I'm trying to work with nature, you know, instead of. So there is additional, but so far I'm using the ashes and the neem oil and what else do I use on there? I use a little bit of, put a little vinegar and water and maybe a bit of baking soda or something in there, and that's what I've been using so far. It's working, but mainly pulling those leaves at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is what's working.
Okay. And then I would suspect that the aphids they become a bigger problem in the high tunnels.
They are in the high tunnels. You have to make sure you got those windows up. All of my high tunnels have windows, so you have to make sure you have windows. I do not have any fans blowing in my high tunnel or anything, but I do have shade cloth at a certain time, but I try to make sure that I have all of my collards and kale and all of those things already out of the ground based on when the heat is coming in. Like last year, we came from winter straight to summer. We did not have a period.
No transition.
Exactly. There was not a transition, so. But I look at those as opportunities. You know, I look at it as opportunity. if it happened last year, it's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do I change this time? Do I harvest them early as soon as I notice, maybe a straight week of heat? Do I go ahead and harvest that time instead of waiting? Because the longer I wait, there is greater risk of losing the plant.
So I mean, that sounds like it's so much chaos because when you don't have that transition between winter and summer the way we do, it makes it hard to plan. It makes it hard to coordinate, what you need to be doing and when. So like, do you have like a record keeping, I don't know, a record
Yes.
keeping method that you have that?
Yes.
Okay.
So last year I had, based on the year before and last year, this year I had to harvest earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I had more food that I had to preserve to sell than the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is how I keep the record. And if that should happen, let's say if it happens again,
Mm-hmm.
I have something I can go back to that. Okay, by May 3rd, I had to harvest, field 1, 2, and 3 that had collards killed, I have that record that I can go back to and look at. And then, if we have a repeated summer from 2023
Mm-hmm.
into 2024, if we're going to have a repeat summer, I've already ordered more shade cloth.
Okay.
I ordered them during the fall. When we went into fall, everyone was having clearance.
Right.
So to save money, I went ahead and ordered more shade cloth just in case if I need more for 2024.
And that is smart.
Yeah. So that is the amendment I'm making, preparing for 2024 because no matter what, the business continues. So I call it my BCP plan, my business continuity plan. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, my customers can't suffer because I have to make the adjustment to be able to provide for them.
That's awesome. And see, what I've done is, because I'm often away, so I can't just maintain things the way that I would love to, but I've just switched crops. I'm not planting like any like annual type vegetables or anything like that anymore. I'm planting cassava. Okay. I'm planting chaya, bitter leaf.
Yes.
Things that can take the summer and they don't need a bunch of babying and care and spraying and fertilization and all that other stuff. They just do well for me. I put them out there. They do their thing. When the winter comes, tomorrow it's going to be tonight it's going to be 36 degrees. So I've got to go out there and cut everything. All my canes that I'm going to use for next year, I've got to cut all that stuff back and preserve it for the winter. Because I know what's coming. We've had these crazy freezes, the Arctopocalypse, Snowmageddon as we call them, where we got down to 4 degrees and pipes were busting, and you can't rely on the weather anymore at all. And so I've got to go cut all that stuff today and put it in the garage and put it in trash bags so I can preserve it over the winter so I can replant in the spring. Because I just about lost, what was that? The summer before last, I just about lost everything. No, the winter before last, when we had that freeze, I lost so much material that I basically had to start over from just the minimal.
Yeah.
So this summer was all about, propagating those things out and getting ready. Like you said, the season ahead, or the year before, a year ahead, you've already thought about what problems you've got. You've bought the shade cloth to get ready for that, and you're going to be ready when the next summer comes.
Yes, I am, and I also have another problem with I think I told you because I'm on an incline, so I do have water that run into my hoop houses. So my hoop house number 2, it sits there like a flood, and I've been thinking for the past 2 years, okay, water just sits here, it just sits here. So I was talking to my brother, which is in Africa, and I'm like, the water keeps sitting here, and it's not going anywhere. And he told me, he said, well, make a very high bed and just plant the one greens we call the water greens.
Mm.
Yeah, he said just use that bed for the water greens. You don't have to water it. It requires a lot of water. So you just plant it there and then you don't have to worry about it. And then I also thought about it. I'm like, okay. And 2 days ago, he said, we have this rice that grows within 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, within 90 days? He says, yes. So I'm waiting to get some seeds so I can test it. I mean, I'm not going to actually grow rice to sell, but the idea, there's rice that grows in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a swamp rice. So since the water is sitting there like a swamp, that would just be like a little additional research I'm going to do on that.
Mm.
So I'm just trying to find opportunities in the things that challenge me on the property.
And that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Thinking about these problems, coming up with ideas and solutions that overcome those problems. Mm-hmm. Got to have those critical thinking skills.
Yes,
they're very useful. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Grace, is there anything else you want our audience to know about your operation, or anything in general? If you had a message for the world, what would it be? Here's your opportunity.
Okay, so my message for the world is do not be a part of a concrete farmer. I call concrete farmer, we need places to stay, we need a real estate and whatever, but within that space, we also need food to eat. Mm. And I know farming is very challenging, but there's opportunities. Look at it as an opportunity and not a challenge. And let's work together and find solutions to these things.
All right.
These challenges. That's what I would say. Keep farming.
All right.
Keep growing food.
Sounds good to me. And I'll talk to y'all later.
Okay, thank you.